It is the Welcome to Cooperville podcast and quarantine sessions from Twitch, live on Twitch at No Limit Cooper with Reid Henry, my friend. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, man. How are you?
You know, I think we're all paddling the same boat. I'm not sure if we're all going the same direction, but we're just trying to get through all this craziness right now.
I'm with you. I think you're right.
And you're up outside of Toronto. I mean, what's obviously in the States, it's one thing. Actually, state by state here, it's one thing. What are your current conditions that you have to, or I shouldn't say conditions, but what are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do these days?
Things are starting to open up here a little bit, not as fast as some states. We're still not allowed to leave the country, as far as I know. Surreal. Yeah, I mean, but it's better than it was. I mean, in April we were basically confined to our homes, and it's a little more opened up now. I mean, hopefully it continues that way, and we can get back to something a little more resembling normalcy soon.
Yeah, man, it's been so weird for everybody. And, I've had artists on here and kind of talking about this is the time when you guys like to be out and active and
Yep.
and being in front of people. I mean, that's the lifeline of musicians is, yeah, there's all the aspects of it. There's the writing and the recording and music videos, all the stuff that goes on kind of behind the curtain. But, the reason that you started is to be in front of that fan base and to sing songs for them and to have them sing them back to you. And when that's taken away, what are you doing, I guess, during this time? Obviously you've had some creative time. We're going to talk about the solo single that's coming out, Monster. But have you been spending time, working on your craft, writing and recording and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For me, this has been an opportunity to reflect. Certainly, I was trying to work on music as much as possible, even prior to this pandemic. But having extra time at home definitely affords me the ability to, spend even more time working on songs, even more time developing songs. I've kind of changed the game plan a little bit, obviously, without being able to tour in the way that I was, initially going to, without being able to get out in front of people. We're just trying to, think of, I guess, new approach, a new model, in terms of reaching people and connecting with people in ways that, wouldn't have been necessary or as necessary prior to this, and just putting more weight into the importance of just being present online and having a game plan for exactly how I'm going to reach as many people as possible, and to how to grow this sort of new space for my art without actually being able to get in a van and go shake hands.
Right.
At least for now.
Yeah, it's a weird, I want to say not even a learning curve, because it's, a learning curve. Usually there's a point that you're trying to get to, like, okay, I got to learn, figure this out. And then there's the end. And right now we're kind of all living in this. Well, you wake up one day and the rules change. You're like, okay, well, now I have to readjust, how I'm planning to get to point. Yeah. Where is point B? Because I'm here at point A, and the distance between here and B keeps on changing. But I think utilizing this time for that creative outlet and finding other ways to get your songs out there, get music out there. I think that's, it's what's on the plate right now. But you have just your story is, and like I said, I was in rock radio for 20 years and just following along now from a distance with your story in particular. I want to get to that, but I want to take you back to like music finding its way into your life. There always seems like I want to say a point where you decide like, yeah, music, not like here's doctor, garbage man, teacher, all these avenues are in front of you, as you grow up, and you some kids want to be firefighters when they grow up, but some kids find their way into music. And do you remember when you're like, yeah, this is going to be what I'm going to do with my life? Do you remember a point in time when that happened?
Definitely. I didn't have the kind of career goal I think that some people had in terms of what I was going to do with my life. When I was a young man, I was a punk rocker, dude. I didn't And I believe, I wanted to die at 27. I thought the world was going to end. I had no interest in a career or making money or anything. I just wanted to play punk rock music and to, break stuff and live moment to moment. It was not exactly like a long-term plan. I think that I moved out sort of in anger at age 18. I moved from the small town that I was living in to the big city for us, which was Toronto, and I moved into a rehearsal space next to a couple other bands. So that like the first floor and the second floor were like hourly rooms that you could rent to go in, and there would be backline musical instruments there, and you just kind of rehearse. And the sort of day-to-day bands had that. There was an additional third floor to this space that had like live-in bands, and me and two friends that I'd sort of known in high school, that they had secured this lease for this place. I moved in with them. We happened to be next to one of the bands we were living next to was My Darkest Days, who were 5 or 6 years older than me, and had some degree of success already. This would be 2007. And 3 Days Grace was obviously huge already, whom, for those of you who don't know, My Darkest Days singer, Matt Walst, his older brother, Brad Walst, was the bass player of 3 Days Grace, still is. And so they had, considerable success, not only regionally, but at that time worldwide. My Darkest Days in 2007 was really not known. We were just, they were a local band, but they were pretty popular. And I remember getting to kind of get strung along to their shows, and I helped tune their guitars and sort of teched for them and stuff, and got some free beer tickets. And eventually, I kind of convinced them to let my band open up, and sort of went from there. And after a year or two, we were kind of just like drinking beer and playing Halo together all the time. And when it came to, they got a record deal and they were kind of growing, I was given the opportunity to sort of like, if you can hack it, you can be the sort of like third wheel kind of thing. I was the fifth member. So I spent like 15 or 16 hours a day just insulating myself as a musician, just singing constantly until like my throat couldn't make sounds anymore, and playing guitar until my hands felt like they were going to fall off. And then like the old, cliches go. But that's the life we lived, man. We ate beans and like frozen peas and like played music and ate McDonald's cheeseburgers on the weekends. And like, we lived like, just like in squalor, just so we could just play music constantly. And there was no career goal. We weren't trying to get rich. We were just doing what made sense to us, and just giving it absolutely everything we possibly could. And it was exciting. It was an exciting time in 2010, early 2010, watching the band go from playing like, pretty cool shows to suddenly like we were playing like 500, 600 seaters, like over capacity in Toronto and in the small town that the guys were from. We'd have like lineups of people outside. We were crowd surfing and like, it was crazy. So when we first toured in 2010 with Sick Puppies and It's Alive and a band called Janice, and then went on to do a Hinder tour and a Papa Roach tour. It was, getting increasingly crazy and surreal for us. And I was very, very grateful and blessed to be a part of that, and be with such talented people who certainly made me rise above my skill set at the time, and rise to the occasion to try and be as good of a musician as those guys were. And so I'm very grateful for not only the learning experience that I got, but the truly the 1 in a million opportunity that I was afforded by My Darkest Days, and the ability that we eventually toured, all over the United States. We got to play Europe. We played some of the biggest hockey rinks in the whole world, and big festivals with bands we grew up listening to. So it was definitely a dream come true.
Yeah, I was going to say there was huge success with My Darkest Days. Obviously, Porn Star Dancing is still an anthem. Not that I've been to a club recently because they're shut down.
No, me neither. Yeah.
But I've heard that it's that song still gets cranked out. So obviously with that, and especially when you have a song that brings in some really big names on in collab with it with Chad and with Zach, and then Luda, the Luda version. I'm like, man, this that was like so not anthemy, but I mean, that really, you have that song that creates this, that will almost, I want to say live forever, but it will be one of those songs that is always in rotation. You know, it's crazy. So that success,
super cool,
you know, leads to so many things. And we talked about being able to, you know, here you are wanting to be, you know, punk rock and break shit, which I think is fantastic, which you know, I lived that mentality for many years of my life too. But then you have that success, and you get to go and see the world, and you get to go and kind of live that rock star dream. I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of that's the thing, you know, people are like, yeah, that's why people get into, you know, not you or me. We're like, no, we just want to break stuff and whatever. But, you know, some people go into it with that, you know, watch too many Motley Crue videos, and they're like, this is what it's going to be. You know, it's going to be this, you know, motorcycles and chicks and, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll. And, you know, as a musician, that the road to get to even before that point, it's dudes in vans, you know, dudes in vans.
When I think of what it took me to get to where I'm at now, I think about eating cold frozen vegetables, like wearing clothes that smelled so bad that it made me sick, and then like playing music so much that I started to question whether or not I actually wanted to do it. I think it's probably like, and then I mean, obviously I shouldn't be. I don't want to seem ungrateful. I mean, we've played some incredible shows, and I've had moments in my life where I'm like, just actually like shaking in my boots from how many people are in front of me. And I think as you tour more and you get used to those crowds, that size of crowd, it's one thing, and you start to get a little numb to it by show 4 or 5, and you're just kind of going through the motions. But truly, when you get those big festival shows that maybe, you know, you've got some, like we had some buzz during Porn Star Dancing's I guess emergence as a like you say, a song that'll be in rotation forever. When that was kind of happening, like, man, it was pretty surreal. And the crowds that we were playing for were just like seas of human beings that kind of, you know, I was like 23 or 22, and for me it was just like you know, to some extent you're going through the motions, but every now and then you look up and you forget where you are in the song, because it's truly like you're dumbstruck. I was dumbstruck that people, you know, wanted to see us, and that we were even in that opportunity. So, or in that, you know, positions. So something else for sure.
There's been a lot of, I got a couple of shout outs here. Jody, Jody's in the chat. Hey, Jody, thank you so much for setting this up. Emo Queen, still rocking out to the tune. So thank you for joining us live on Twitch right now. We appreciate it. But there's, you know, being a part of rock and roll, and it being in, you know, obviously in your blood, and for me for 20 years, ingesting all the things that go on in that world outside of just spinning the tunes. You know, you were part of a band that, you know, went through, I'm trying to think if there was a bigger one. I'm sure there was, I can't think of, but one of the biggest alterations in active rock in the format years ago, with Matt leaving, and I remember it strategic or specifically because 3 Days Grace was scheduled to be announced as a headliner at Rockfest, a festival that I've been a part of for the better part of a decade, and it happened. So it must have been in that late end of the year, towards the beginning of the following year. I can't. You probably know specifically what year it was, but I remember.
Yeah, 2013, 14.
Yeah. So there was a delay in announcing the lineup because they weren't sure what was going to happen with, you know, obviously Adam leaving 3 Days Grace, and then Matt being added to it, and it was one of the strange isn't the right word, but this big shift in with 3 Days Grace being this band that had so much success on the charts, you know, with Adam, and then to make the adjustment with Matt, and then to have this band, My Darkest Days, that, you know, from my active rock programming director opinion was like, I'm like, yeah, they're going to hit big with Porn Star Dancing, and then they're going to have the follow up, and it's going to be awesome. And album 2, album 3, you go through the album cycle, and it's, you could feel that success was there, in the confines of that band. But then the change happens, and I think it was a weird adjustment for, I'm obviously a huge adjustment for you, but for the active rock audience going, wait, what just happened?
I mean, it was definitely a strange time. For me, like, Matt was someone who I looked up to for many years, and was just not only a fan of, but was a very, very dear friend of. And for me, watching him, because we were still like living together at the time, watching him go through that, just like puking from stress, and just so afraid and self-conscious of what he was dealing with at that time emotionally and psychologically, like, was crazy, man. Like, he had so much to process that I just had to support my friend as well as I could, and to watch him grow and succeed and grow into that role. But in a lot of ways, he's kind of like, I don't want to say like destined or whatever, but certainly he was like, as a high school kid, he would have been looking up to his brother and to those guys, and dreaming of being in that band. So for us to watch our friend go on and be in a band that he had sort of, like the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg or whatever.
Yeah.
it's so I was just really happy for him. Obviously, it was a challenge for us as musicians and in terms of our career. But like I said, I never really went into it trying to get a career or anything. We were just in the position we were in. And I felt like when we came out on the other side of the Super Mario, tunnel pipe thing, I felt like I was in a very advantageous position to kind of challenge myself to move forward as a singer and as a songwriter, something I had always done, and something that I developed. I feel I developed a lot having the opportunities that I had working as a guitarist in my darkest days, working with the writers we worked with, and learning from all the people that we learned from. And so, for me, it was just kind of like, well, this is sort of a natural progression. It would have been really cool to still be a band with my darkest days, simply because Matt's so talented and his art is, so cool. And so, he as a writer and as a singer is just so talented. But I took it as a challenge to myself to try and rise to the occasion, and to follow up with relevant music. And so I was grateful for that opportunity in and of itself.
I remember the first Dead Set Society song being pushed out to radio. I want to say Ray Miner was a guy that was behind it, a good friend of mine from California who was pushing the record when it came out, and it was build. Obviously, they wanted to kind of build the hype around the song, and so they had with featuring former members of My Darkest Day, and God, I remember that first song was Like a Nightmare. The first song, or was it Automatic?
It was Automatic, and then kind of like it didn't fall on its face, but we didn't really get the excitement we thought we'd get out of it. And then just Like a Nightmare just started kind of getting like picking up steam, so we just sort of changed gears and went with that. So I mean, coming out of the gates, I think the riff just kind of grabbed people, so we went with that, and did well for us.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a very close proximity of those two songs, coming out to radio, and really feeling like the songwriting of it was it was much more in tune, I think, with the current mentality of things. I mean, you're incorporating lyrics that people can relate to in a with Automatic in a technological world where they're like, yeah, I get it. It's not singing about love in this essence of this, this feeling that's out there. It's like, no, it's like, how can you relate it to where, people actually are? They're in their devices, they're in the tech, they know this, that association. I remember that when that song came out, I'm like, no, these guys get how to write music about, that's relatable. And then, Like a Nightmare was so, I thought it was an amazing song that, for me having the luxury in radio to not have anybody tell me what to play, I was so grateful to be able to say, Guess what? This one's going to be in a much higher rotation, than the chart. The chart tells me it's going to be. So it was really, for me, kind of a really cool way to, I think, bring that that passion that I felt for my darkest days, just because I knew that talent level was there, and obviously with Matt going on to do his thing, but the way you brought this new, it feels like you really had hands dug deep into Dead Set Society when you guys made that an entity.
Absolutely, man. I kind of, it started off as a different name. I'd worked for years right after My Darkest Days was went on a hiatus. I started working with our bass player, trying to just get something out. And honestly, we spent like over 2 years, just trying to develop it and to get it to build it from the ground up, give it good bones. And we met the right people. We were able to kick it off and to get back on tour with a record we were really proud of. And having that time definitely allowed us to sort of percolate through the songs and really hone stuff and do make music, I think, the way that some of the albums that I think are classic, from the 80s and the 90s and before, how they were made, where there was a little bit more of less people working on it and more time. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I think a lot of the records today tend to be a large group of people working collaboratively in a shorter period of time, which, I mean, there's no fault to it. It's, if it's successful, if you write great music that way, if you can come, get a bunch of really, really talented, like-minded people to pool their ideas together and to have a clear goal and to, if you can make great art that way, then more power to you. I've always felt that, I've been involved in those sorts of writing scenarios. For me, personally, I find making music is like a cathartic thing. It's sacred. It's like going to church for me. So I like to, for me, making music is my, I wouldn't say escapism, but it's my canvas. So I find that to be, it's almost private until the point in which I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I'm excited about this. And then I get excited about showing other people this. And I think that sort of feeds into it. And if you're able to have a set period of time where you make a whole bunch of songs, you generate a body of work, and they sort of flow in and amongst each other, or they kind of click into each other, sort of like a puzzle. As you move away from that period of time, you start to see that body of work, that record, you see it sort of take shape. And I think that's an exciting thing that I'm grateful I was afforded that luxury. And I think that's part of what makes Dead Set's record Destroy and Rebuild, for me at least. I guess it's what makes it something I'm so proud of, is that it did have that time to marinate and to kind of become its own thing and to have its own feel and have, just something that glues it together.
Yeah. There's and I have strong opinions about, and now that I'm out of radio, I finally can express them, because then I would have been, I don't want to say chastised, but
sure,
my boxes of merch would have been much less. But there's so much, and I've been able, I think, to discover this in the last year of not being in the machine. There's so much talent out there. My goodness, I've discovered, I think, more music in the last year than I did in many years of radio. Because obviously, how the system works. It's somebody sends you the single, it sends you the artwork and gives you the backstory, and then you watch the chart for it, and so it is so the machine just kind of keeps on feeding the machine, and as you well know, the top feeders are the top feeders, and then there's everybody else in the middle that's trying to scrap and claw to get that one song that cracks the top, and then there's this giant pool of talent and the guys that are and gals that are out there just doing the van tours, doing the sprinter tours, and living in those stinky clothes that you mentioned. They're just, they're grinding it out and doing incredibly long tour runs and stopping at every radio station they can. And, that talent to me always, when they actually put the effort into writing an album, and they put the time into every last aspect of it, instead of it being like, okay, you have 6 months after the tour, 6 months you have after the tour, and now we need another record by this date, and then everything lines itself up, the tour cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely been squeezed out of the sausage factory a couple of times now. Whatever, pressed through the meat grinder.
Oh yeah,
the music industry.
But
yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely, I mean, there's good aspects of that sausage, and there's bad aspects of it. The good aspects are, of course, that if you're inside the machine, you're getting your content, or if you can even really say it's your artwork anymore.
Right.
If it is, I mean, a lot of people maybe their music or their art is influenced heavily by the marketing aspects, or the people who are, the powers that be, whatever. The people in charge of selling your music can have a tendency to get their fingers kind of too deep in the pie and spoil it sometimes. But if that's not the case, you have the opportunity to be broadcast to a vast amount of people, and that's super cool.
Yeah.
But I think with the way technology is in this day and age, and the way social media has us all brought together, I think that that people have, if you look at YouTubers, like there's 16-year-old kids in their basement that have, more success or more popularity than I do after 10 years of being inside the, music industry. So I think that there's lots of different ways one can become successful in this day and age, and to reach an audience. At the end of the day, if you're coming up with engaging and interesting content, I mean, can't even say that that's necessarily it. There's so many different, so many different lenses in which you can try and make sense of what becomes popular or what makes people react. I try not to spend too much time on it, because when if you let it bother you too much, you realize that some of the most, popular videos on the internet are people fucking, or cats like on skateboards. You can't be too hard on
I know, right? You're like, wait a minute, like,
people don't want to be challenged intellectually or artistically. They don't want to be, made to feel uncomfortable by music. They don't want to be, to feel too strongly. Sometimes people just want background noise while they watch cat videos, and that's, who am I to judge? Whatever. I just think that for me personally, to reach the maximum amount of people while compromising what I'm doing the least, I think I found a positive way to do that with what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more on the cat videos. And I watch. I just, you see some of these things pop up, and you're like, there's 24 million views of something in a day, and you're like, what the fuck are people like? Shouldn't you be doing something else? I mean, I know, like, don't read and people have time to comment on it too. I'm like, don't you have, like, is it sunny out? Like, shouldn't you be out doing something like creative? But no, I think the great thing about technology and the way that it's taking us, and I think the machine, the meat grinder, is still behind the 8 ball on it. They're still behind the curve. They're not 100% committed to either social media or other outlets of getting your music out, because if you embrace that, then you start to pull the cog in the machine over here, and it starts to leak a little bit, and not everybody's getting the pork that spits out of the machine at the end of the day. So you have avenues now, and that's been a great part of my music discovery the last year. And artists I would never ever have heard of in radio, is that there's these avenues now that you can find a path in, and all of a sudden you start gaining momentum on those platforms, and people start paying attention, and all of a sudden you have this following that can, for some artists, amass what would be a huge radio campaign, or a huge, being in front of the mainstream mainstream of rock and roll, whatever that is nowadays. But it's
Right.
I think it's an amazing thing for artists to have these avenues now, and for a fan of music in general to be able to say, oh, it's not just these 10. It's not just these, this particular sound. Oh, wait, an artist can go from sounding like this, and then one day they feel like this, and they can sound a little bit different. And I can be okay with that because I also have emotions that go in different ways. I think has opened up so much more.
Absolutely. I think that the formats have become a lot more dynamic in that way. And I think that's exciting. And as an artist, you feel like there's a little bit more room to breathe than maybe if you were just sort of shoved into this really narrow. I definitely, we were pressured very, very heavily in my darkest days to come up with Porn Star Dancing Part 2.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Which I'm sure you can imagine. And really, that's not the way you follow up a really, really smashed song like Porn Star Dancing, which is so, like, I mean, it's still, like you say, it's still in rotation today. I look on Spotify and just the numbers that it rakes in are staggering. So, I mean, if you try to follow up fire with an even bigger fire, where does it end, right? Like, at what point are you just
right?
You kind of have to, balance, highs and lows, peaks and valleys, as we said. And I think that's cool that modern active rock is becoming a little bit more, I guess, dynamic in terms of the scope. It's not just the same riff rock over and over again or whatever. It's become a lot more open to various formats, or the format itself has become open to more genre, I guess I should say.
Yeah, because I think there's finally a realization that people do have different moods, and they do have different, they don't always need to hear the same, BPM, for an hour straight, throw in some commercials and then another hour straight at the same BPM. They want to hear things that have tone. They want to hear things that have different, different sound, different sonic sounds to them. They want to hear, maybe some hip hop mixed into, or they want to hear something that sounds maybe a little more classic. They want to hear something that sounds a little more, futuristic, something that's a little more, but if it all falls in the same, we're badass rock and roll, people, in the genre. It's
exactly.
It's weird how it works, but having Dead Set Society have some success. There's fans in here. Let's see, Emo Queen. Your band's got me through 9 years, listening to them for 9 years. The album was over 1 million people loving it. So there's obviously you got great fan reaction. We got a bunch of people in the chat right now and watching this live. So
cool.
When you Dead Set is currently on hiatus, as you've stated. Having this time to really, and this, it's weird. You could say this time, like last year, you'd say, oh yeah, this time, and it would be like, oh, there's this time of year. Now we're in like this time of this weird pandemic. There's not even right. I hope eventually there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but now that you're able to really solely focus on what you want to create, what has this process been like, to get the first single ready, and to get it out and to really have, your arms wrapped around this thing 100%?
Right. I mean, for me, I'm kind of, I feel like the Sherpa at the top of the mountain in some ways, in that I'm kind of like looking down onto my past works and sort of able to, have the advantage of hindsight into what I've created in the past, and to try and see, like, I guess, hear the mistakes that I've made in the past and try and, as a writer, grow from that. And to try to not wince at it and just plow forward into new music. I don't know that my music's going to sound particularly more, different than Dead Set Society. I'm not actively trying to make any kind of like, it's like, progressive folk pop or something. I'm not like,
right.
I'm still making music I've always made because it's just what I do. That's what I feel the most comfortable in my skin doing, making music that way. It's a culmination of who I am, of my past experiences and what I've lived through. And, the road so far has weathered me for better or for worse and made me the man I am. And so I think that as a writer, it's great to have the amount of time we have to really spend, instead of being, well, it certainly makes things more simple, right? You're not going around shaking hands trying to promote in the sort of the triangle of make a record, tour a record, or whatever, like write a record, make a record, tour a record, write a record, make a record, tour a record.
Yep.
I feel like this is kind of we've the third part of the triangle is now it's just A to B, A to B instead of So I think that I hope that my hope is that within the next, I think realistically within 24 months or something, or 36 months, we'll be in a position to have concerts and to be able to be on tour in a meaningful way, not just be like in weird 6 feet apart circles in some club with like 40 people in it, or in some drive-in field watching a concert on a screen or something. Hopefully we'll be in a better place sooner than later. But in the meantime, I just take it as another challenge to reach people, with limited means, to try and achieve an emotional response and to try and make music that is evocative and that makes people feel something, even if it's through a screen, even if it's through a speaker. Right. Obviously, I'm not able to go and shake hands and get FaceTime with the people who have supported me throughout my entire career, and obviously that's a huge bummer. But just to try to make the best of it and make people feel as connected as possible, and to try and find other like-minded individuals, and to reach the people who have supported me thus far, and to keep providing the content and the music that I do.
Yeah, I mean, you got your fans in here are. Jem says Dead Set Society saved my life too. So thank you for that. So obviously,
thank you.
You understand how music can be powerful in a way. When you're doing it, I think the way that you did the Dead Set Society record, and the way you're doing your solo stuff, when you're writing with purpose, with really doing your craft, doing your art, not having your art photocopied and photoshopped by somebody else. This is your real. This is what you want to create. Nobody told Picasso, like, I don't know, this is kind of fucked up. Like,
more
you should,
blue.
yeah, I don't like what you got going here with the ear. Like, what is this? Like, change that. Like, that's
exactly.
That's what makes it.
What about upside down?
Yeah. What if you just turn your head a little bit while you paint?
Can you make it bigger?
What do you mean there's no zoom feature on here? This is crap.
Yeah.
No, it's I think if you have that artistic time to put into music, I think it becomes more tangible to your fans and to people who hear it, and it hits them in a different way. They feel it in a different way than they do something that's overly produced. It's had too many cooks in the kitchen on it, and it's like, yeah, it could be a really good jam. It could be a banger, and it hits the top of the charts, and you hear it every hour and 15 minutes, and you're like, yeah, that song is a song, but it doesn't, you don't feel it. You're not like, yeah, that's exactly. When I'm in my dark place, or I'm going through a bad time, I don't reach out to that song to go, yeah, I'm going to listen to that and it's going to be amazing. You want the song that connects with your emotions. I think you're having the chance to write that now.
Yeah. And I think that, I was sort of torn as to whether or not I should, accept the feelings that I feel right now about, the quarantine and everything that's going on, and whether or not I should consciously make music about that. And I think that I got to the place where everyone feels that way right now. So, I always am reminded of when I was very young, as a teenager, and sort of like wallowing and listening to the Smashing Pumpkins and Nine Inch Nails, and that sort of like, it was like freeing in a way, liberating in a way to listen to something that was making you more depressed when you're depressed, or listening to something that sort of, is a depressing song when you're depressed. I feel like the reason why people benefit from that is because they're, or at least I can speak for myself when I say that for me, it made me feel like I wasn't alone and that somebody else had been there. You know what I mean? Like when you listen to the Downward Spiral, you're like, whoa, man, like he's seen some dark shit.
Yeah.
Like that's real. And
Trent's
for me,
been
I
somewhere.
was able to, you know what I mean? So I think that, that for me, I was able to, that inspired me to be honest when I make music, and to be honest with myself when I make music. So in terms of, you know, this quarantine, I was initially sort of shied away from maybe making music about what's going on now, but I think that everyone's processing this, everyone's adjusting at the same time. So why not be honest with myself, and why not make music about adjusting to that? I feel, you know, it's in the effort, not only in an effort to be relatable to people, but just in an effort to be honest with yourself when you make music. Because if you're trying to make something, or there's too much artifice in what you're doing, I feel like people can tell, and it reads as inauthentic, and it's just, you know, a lot of times, even if it's a banger, if it's disposable, you're going to end up like Lady Gaga's 7th single off her 2nd record, or Ace of Base's, you know, 3rd single off their 4th record. No one remembers it. No one cares. It's meaningless. It's just derivative and disposable music that people just sort of gloss over. And in 3 years, you're going to be buried by the other meaningless music that'll be piled on top of you, Xerox over and over and over again. Yeah. So I think that in order to create something that truly stands the test of time, not only do you need to be, you know, burned into the ground on the radio or on the streaming services, but to actually have a lasting impact, is to make something timeless, is a huge challenge. And I think it starts with being truthful or being real.
I think that's probably a staple of all the songs. When you look back on, you know, you mentioned Downward Spiral, you know, great, deep, emotionally charged records, and even some of the classic stuff that has stood the test of time in a way that you're like, yeah, that song. I mean, you know, Lennon, you know, Imagine by John Lennon, you know, songs that really like connect emotionally with people.
Totally, man. And I mean, not even saying there's anything wrong with, like, you know, Ace of Base's 3rd single off their 4th record or whatever. Like,
I'm sure it was an awesome song.
Sure. You know what I mean? I told you, you know, you need disposable party music to bang on. And well, if there were such a thing as clubs open right now, you know, in this, you know, if imaginary situation where there's clubs in the future or whatever, you need club songs. I mean, or whatever, right? Like, I'm not faulting people for making disposable music, or even, you know, saying that they were trying to make disposable music. It ends up as disposable if it doesn't have that something about it that just is evocative. And I feel like party songs, I mean, don't always land in a way that makes them timeless.
Right.
I think that part of why I mean, full disclosure, like Porn Star Dancing was written by Matt and some super talented people that I had no part in writing Porn Star Dancing. I was like, you know, outside the looking glass at the time, but that song is a party song, and it stood the test of time. And I think that we'll be listening to Porn Star Dancing when I am an old man. You know what I mean? And I think that's super cool. I don't know why or what. I think part of it maybe is emotional experience. People listen to a song like that and they think, like, you know, if you see like the 60-year-old Def Leppard party girl fans that are like, you know, they're listening to Pour Some Sugar on Me, thinking about when those experiences, it invokes those memories, those associative memories of being, you know, 20 something and, you know, getting blackout drunk, passing out in the back of your car in a parking lot or something. Those sort of fond memories of youth people have and you associate with that
good
song.
Old days. Yeah. Right.
And, you know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. So I think that maybe a party song, if it reaches that level of airplay or of social status, that maybe it can last forever. And you know, whatever, maybe there'll be like top 40 songs that'll, you know, live on forever as a positive memory in people's lives. But I just think that for every one of those, there's 1,000 that are just meaningless and buried.
Right.
So I'm not in the business of trying to make music like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I don't fault people for trying to cash out or whatever, but cash in. But I've just never really done music for that reason. So
yeah, that's definitely it's a money path for sure, because you know, you want to, if you're in it to have some sort of you know, the levels of fame, the levels of success, the excess that comes along with success. I mean, there's that route is there. And I think you're right. I think there's a spot for that if that's what you're musically, if that's what you're going for. Like, oh, I'm doing it for these purposes, or this song has sometimes a song can take an artist or a band into an avenue they maybe really didn't want to head, musically, but the success is there. So why not take that path since it's already been, paved by a certain party song or anthem like that. But I want to talk about Monster, first solo single from you, Reid, and going through this process as a solo artist. What's give me the details on it. When can all these fans they're bringing up good stories about when you had this long hair, baby face. Oh man, they're
Joke. Oh no.
It's all positive though. They're all good.
Okay, good. I can't see the comments right now, so
yeah,
I'll creep through later.
but Monster, when tell me about going through the process of the writing and when can people hear it? And
I think that the song itself is kind of coming to terms with your inner demons, kind of coming to terms with yourself, accepting who you are for all your faults. I began writing that song kind of on tour. I had a tendency to sort of isolate myself when I'm stressed out. I think that song is just a result of a lot of personal reflection. And maybe, like I said, just as maybe, listening to something that's written, that's maybe like a depressing song when you're not feeling happy or when you're depressed can be liberating. I think that making a song about how you feel like a piece of shit can liberate you in a sense as well, and maybe make you feel like it's okay to have, felt that way or to have made mistakes. So I think it's a song about maybe accepting yourself for what you are. Yeah, I mean, we're in the process of getting everything launched now and getting everything live. We're a little delayed, unfortunately, trying to launch with really, really strong content and really, really strong video and everything. So it's held it off a little longer than I initially wanted to. But maybe I should. So it should be live by next week. I'll definitely let everyone know. If you want to go to my YouTube, which is just YouTube/Reid Henry, or add me to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. You can find me on social media if you haven't already. And you'll definitely be notified as soon as it's up and live. And but definitely, if you want to be the first one to know, go to YouTube and subscribe. It'll ding you right away. Maybe just for the people listening now, we can post a YouTube link and just get a sort of sneak preview. So you know what? After this live podcast ends, I will post a YouTube link for 1 hour, and then y'all can check it out.
Hope y'all were paying attention. Hope everybody's paying attention.
But I'm going to take it down again because the video is not going to go live. It'll probably be next Friday, hopefully sooner. I don't know. I'm kind of my own worst enemy when it comes to this kind of thing. So the most DIY I've ever released a project, but I think that there are benefits to that as well. This is not one of them.
Yeah, the releasing part is the challenge, especially during all this. But have you enjoyed? Have you thoroughly enjoyed being the full on? This is all your hands, all your work. All has it been therapeutic for you to be able to do it this way?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It kind of comes down to, I mean, I've always made music the way I do. I've had no success collaborating, really. I wish I had. I've tried a lot. I've worked with a lot of people and collaborated a ton. I've never written a good song doing it, or almost never written a good song doing it. And then when I do end up working with people, it just usually ends up turning into a screaming match, like me storming out or them storming out. It's like I've just never really had success as an artist doing that.
Right.
And it's taken me to kind of be the age I'm at now or to be able to accept that. So musically or artistically, nothing's significantly different than the way I was making music in the past. I just feel like I'm happy to have sort of one space to have my songs, where I know that it's always going to be there, and I'm always going to have that space to keep my songs together. So I'm excited for that. I thought for a long time about a moniker, and then I couldn't think of anything good. And then it made me think, well, if I can't think of a good moniker, why are people going to listen to my music? And then I settled on the fact that, you know what, I've spent so many years touring and made so many friends, and certainly don't have the kind of recognition that like I don't know, a Kardashian or something would have, but like
Right.
some semblance of people would recognize me from my darkest days or my previous work. Maybe I'll have a larger audience out of the gates if I do it this way. So I think that was mostly informed by my ability to reach people and to have people find my music quicker by just having a solo project or whatever, like I'm not, some egotistical, I don't know, like, my name is kind of makes me feel uncomfortable when I see it in like bold font on like a poster or something, but whatever, it is what it is. And it's the best space I can come up with to keep my songs together.
Well, I love it, dude. I mean, the whole, the story, what you're doing right now, I think is, I love it. And I love the fact that these outlets are there. Something we referenced earlier on in the podcast here is that there's an avenue for you, and it will grow. And you got some great fans in here, man. Casual Sex was also a fun party song. Okay. Yeah. I remember that one. Does the song Holding On, will it be available, on your new album, Holding On?
That song, I wrote it on tour. I think I put it on YouTube, and I forgot I put it on YouTube. And then when I was going through my channel a little while ago, I was like, oh, wow, this is still there. I kind of went through like a folk kick, and it's like sort of Holding On is like a folk song. It's like a 2.5 minute, just like kind of, I don't know. You know what I mean? Actually, that kind of lends itself to our conversation earlier about having sort of, various dynamic peaks and valleys in terms of genre. But I feel like, I write a lot of songs, and not all of them feel like they are going to fit as the same pieces to the same puzzle. That song was fun to write. And I, maybe one day I'll put out a folk EP or something that sounds like Neil Young.
There you go.
I don't know, but it's not really going to sit well next to Monster, which kind of would, maybe have a better company next to Like a Nightmare than Holding On.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm flattered, and thank you for listening to the song. But
they love the song. Makes them feel good. You're sweet. You're a gentleman. Can't wait for the song. By the way, we're going to, for those of you who are following along for the first time here on the live stream on Twitch, so obviously this is live. Reid and I are on the hang right now. This video will go up on YouTube for the Cooperville YouTube page, and then it will be released on podcast platforms tomorrow. And all the links for Reid's social medias will be in the show notes of the podcast. So you can just, if you're listening, you can just jump on and link right up. And if you were paying attention moments ago, there may be a little Monster preview in on his YouTube page. So hopefully you were paying attention to that. Hey, Reid, I want to say thank you so much, man, for not just for the time today, but for the music and for sharing your story. I know it's, the industry is crazy, but the way that you're doing it, and this is former radio dude who's learned a lot in the last year about music and what's out there and the avenues that are out there for you to get your songs out. I'm so happy for you, dude, that you have this this project with Monster, with having this time to write and to be creative and to do it on your own terms, man. I fucking love artists that do it this way so much. I have so much more adoration for those who are doing it the way you're doing it than we talked about the machine. So you probably have a gist of my my thoughts on what's currently available. So I'm so pumped to hear the song, man. I can't wait.
Thank you so much, Cooper. I appreciate you, man. I feel like we're definitely on the same page when it comes to the Sausage Factory.
Yeah, 100%, man. Grind it up, spit out, and then didn't fit in the next time. I guess we'll find somebody else to throw in the meat grinder. It'll be fine.
This metaphor has been making me want hot dogs.
No, well, see, I'm in Wisconsin, so I gotta have a bratwurst. We do bratwurst here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm gonna get me a bratwurst after this podcast.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it. Best of luck. Can't wait for the single to drop and the video. To all the fans that jumped on, thank you from myself and from Reid. We really appreciate you hanging out with us on a Friday afternoon, man. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Cooper. I appreciate you.
Hey, let's do it again sometime soon, man. All right?
Definitely, brother.
Take care of yourself up there.
You too, man.
All right,
cheers.